Growing up, I always had a close relationship with my father, especially after my mother passed away when I was just a boy. It was just the two of us for years, and we made do. But everything changed the day he brought her into our lives. Sophia, his new wife, my stepmother. I remember the first time I saw her. She was unlike anyone I had ever met. Graceful, with a magnetic presence that captivated everyone around her, including me. I tried to dismiss it at first, this strange pull I felt whenever she was around. I told myself it was just admiration, an innocent fascination with the way she carried herself. But deep down, I knew it was something more, something dangerous. Over time, Sophia became a bigger part of our lives. She was everything my father had needed after my mother's death, supportive, kind, and full of life. But for me, she became something else. I couldn't stop thinking about her. Every glance she gave me felt like a spark. Every accidental touch ignited something inside me that I couldn't control. I fought it. God knows I tried to push those feelings aside. But the more I tried, the more they consumed me. And then, one evening, everything changed. My father was away on a business trip, leaving Sophia and me alone in the house. I had just turned 19, but I still felt like a child compared to her. That night, I stayed up late, unable to sleep, haunted by the image of her. I tried to focus on anything but her, but my thoughts kept drifting back to those moments when I caught her looking at me. And then, around midnight, I heard footsteps coming down the hallway. My heart raced as I heard the soft knock on my door. I opened it, and there she was, standing in the dim light, wearing a silk robe that barely covered her. "I couldn't sleep," she said softly, her eyes searching mine. Neither could I, but I didn't say that. I just stood there, frozen, as she stepped closer, her presence filling the small space between us. "I feel like we haven't talked in a while," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. We hadn't, and we both knew why. But before I could respond, she reached out and touched my arm, sending a shiver down my spine. It was innocent enough, but something about the way she looked at me was anything but. "I don't know what to do with these feelings," she continued, her hand lingering a little too long. "I don't know how to handle them." I swallowed hard, every fiber of my being telling me to walk away, to stop this before it went too far. But I couldn't. I was lost in her, in the way she looked at me, like she had been waiting for this moment as much as I had. Before I knew what was happening, we were in each other's arms, kissing with a passion that had been building for months. It was wrong. I knew it was wrong, but in that moment, it didn't matter. Nothing mattered but the two of us, and the electricity that coursed between us. The night passed in a blur of passion and guilt. When I woke up the next morning, reality came crashing down. What had we done? How could I face my father after this? I was sick with shame, but when I saw her, there was no regret in her eyes, only desire. From that moment on, things between us escalated. Every time my father left the house, we found ourselves pulled back into each other's orbit, unable to resist the temptation. It was intoxicating, the thrill of being with her, but also terrifying. We both knew it couldn't last. And then, the unthinkable happened. One afternoon, I came home early from class, expecting the house to be empty. But as I walked in, I heard voices, my father and Sophia, arguing. I froze in place, listening as their voices grew louder. "You think I don't know?" My father's voice boomed. "You think I haven't seen the way you look at him?" My heart stopped. He knew. I wanted to run to hide, but I couldn't move. I stood there, paralyzed, as Sophia tried to calm him down. "It's not what you think," she pleaded, but I could hear the panic in her voice. "It's exactly what I think," he snapped. "I've seen the way you've been sneaking around with him. My own son." My blood ran cold. This was it. Everything was going to come crashing down. I stepped into the room, unable to hide any longer. My father's face turned red with fury as he saw me, and for a moment, I thought he was going to hit me. But then, something unexpected happened. Instead of lashing out, my father broke down in tears. "How could you do this to me?" he cried, looking at both of us with utter devastation. How could you betray me like this? I had no words. There was nothing I could say to make it right. Sophia stood there, silent, her eyes filled with regret. And then, without another word, my father walked out of the house, slamming the door behind him. For days, we didn't hear from him. The silence was unbearable. Sophia and I were left to face the wreckage of what we had done. The guilt was suffocating. But even then, I couldn't shake the feelings I had for her. But things took a darker turn when my father finally returned. He didn't come back with anger. Instead, he came back with a plan. He had filed for divorce, and in a shocking twist, he was taking everything. The house, the savings, everything. Sophia was left with nothing, and it was all because of me. As the reality of our situation set in, the passion between us began to fade. What had once been thrilling and dangerous now felt hollow and empty. The betrayal had destroyed not just my father's life, but ours as well. In the end, Sophia left. She couldn't stay in the house, couldn't face the consequences of what we had done. And I was left alone, with nothing but the memory of the love that had never been meant to happen. I had fallen in love with my stepmother, and it had ruined everything. But the worst part, even after everything, a part of me still loved her. After Sophia left, I was determined to try and rebuild my relationship with my father. He was the only family I had left, and despite everything, I knew I owed him an apology. But when I finally got the courage to visit him, the scene was not what I expected. As I walked up to the house, I saw another car parked in the driveway. I knocked on the door, heart racing, and when it opened, there stood my father. He looked different. He wasn't angry or broken like I'd imagined. He was calm, almost content. And then I saw her, a woman standing behind him, a woman younger than Sophia. My father had moved on, and in a twist I never saw coming, he was already seeing someone new. This woman, Jessica, greeted me with a cold smile, and the tension in the air was suffocating. My father acted as if nothing had happened, as if we were still a normal family. It was unsettling, almost eerie. Had he really forgiven me so easily, or was this a twisted attempt at revenge? In the weeks that followed, my father and Jessica got closer, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Every time I saw them together, I felt a knot in my stomach. And then, the real twist came. One evening, after a strained dinner, Jessica pulled me aside. She looked at me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "I know about you and Sophia," she said, her voice low. "Your father told me everything." I froze, panic rising in my chest. "What do you mean?" She smiled, a cruel smile. "He's not as over it as you think. He's just waiting for the right moment to ruin you. He wants you to feel the same pain he felt." I couldn't believe it. My father was playing a game, a dangerous one, and I was the pawn. Jessica's words sent a chill down my spine, and from that moment on, I knew I couldn't trust either of them. But things took another dark turn when Sophia came back into the picture. Out of nowhere, she called me, begging to meet. Against my better judgment, I agreed, and we met at a cafe on the outskirts of town. She looked different, tired, broken, and full of regret. She confessed that leaving me had been the hardest decision of her life, but she couldn't live with the guilt any longer. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "I never meant to hurt you or your father. I didn't know how to stop." I didn't know what to say. A part of me still loved her, but another part of me hated her for what she had done. Before I could respond, Sophia dropped a bombshell. "I'm pregnant," she said, her voice shaking. "And I don't know if it's yours or your father's." The room spun. I couldn't breathe. How had things spiraled this far out of control? My mind raced as I tried to process her words, but before I could, Sophia stood up abruptly. "I need to know," she said, her eyes pleading. "Please, help me figure this out." I didn't know what to do. This was beyond anything I could have imagined. But the drama was far from over. Just days later, I received a call from Jessica, frantic and hysterical. "Your father's in the hospital," she sobbed. He collapsed. "You need to come now." I rushed to the hospital, heart pounding, only to find my father lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines. Jessica stood by his side, her face a mix of guilt and fear. As I approached, she pulled me aside. "It's my fault," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I've been poisoning him." Slowly, over time. My mind reeled. This was beyond anything I could have anticipated. "Why?" I demanded, horrified. "I wanted him out of the picture," she confessed, tears streaming down her face. "I wanted to be with you. Ever since I found out about you and Sophia, I've been obsessed with you." I felt sick. Everything was unraveling before my eyes. My father's health, my twisted relationship with Sophia, and now this. I had to get out of there, away from Jessica, away from the chaos, but it was too late. The web of lies and betrayal had caught up to me, and there was no escape. After 72 days in the hospital, my father recovered, but nothing was ever the same. The family we once had was shattered beyond repair. Sophia disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only questions and heartbreak. Jessica was arrested, her obsession revealed to everyone, and I was left alone, haunted by the choices I had made. The love I had fallen into had destroyed everything, and now there was nothing left but regret. Sophia's plea echoed, urging me to untangle the chaos and seek answers amidst the ruins of our lives, hoping for redemption in the aftermath. In the quiet aftermath, I wandered through the remnants of my life, seeking solace and understanding amidst the echoes of shattered dreams. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next episode.